Michaela, Air Force, Navy, Army. Pretty
Yeah.
good representation.
Mm-hmm.
If I could have found the other three, I would have.
Oh, the Marines will complain, but let them complain. What?
Navy, they're part of the Navy. They're
We should say that. We should say we feel like the Marines are represented because we have Navy represented. And then we
I'm gonna
will
let you say that.
Wait for the vitriol and the venom.
We have a wonderful gentleman who never turns his video on, and Todd always baits him out with some nice ribbing of the Marines.
And that gets him to show his camera just to wag his finger at me, and then he
Yeah.
Nice.
All right. Well, I'll start the music and we can start letting people in.
all righty.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Generation 9/11. Thank you for the nice fade out there, Ellie. That was wonderful. I love that riff that we found for this generation. All of our programs have a little different of an intro music, and we just found like this sort of rocky hip hoppy mix that sort of we thought meshed with Generation 9/11 a little bit more than folk music or swing, big band, all that. But welcome everyone. I'm happy that you are all here tonight to join us as we honor Women's History Month with our guests tonight. With me as always are Todd DiPastino. Todd, how's it going?
Hello, it is going very well. Good to see everybody tonight.
Ellie, back end, how's it looking back there?
Looking pretty good.
And in fact, Ellie is in Pittsburgh right now. She made the trip from Chicago for a certain someone's birthday. I'm going to let you guess whose it was. And
I don't know if I'm pointing the right way, but my dad.
Happy birthday, Todd.
Oh, I'm milking it all week. It's my birthday all week.
Did you get cake?
Yes, I did get cake.
Chocolate or vanilla?
Cheesecake.
Interesting. I would have chosen chocolate personally, but
no, it wasn't my choice, Sean.
They didn't give you a choice.
They just give me, and I.
Ellie, come on.
I couldn't do that much.
Well, we're going to get right to our female guest tonight, and we would definitely want to allow everyone to make comments in the chat. If you have any questions during this, please feel free to just chime in, or pop your hand up or press the hand up button here on Zoom. We will definitely get to you. Todd is going to be scoping out the chat section. I want to get to Michaela first. Oh my God, the baby.
Oh my.
Hi, baby. Hi.
What a cutie.
What is
she
her
was
name?
Crying. Yeah, this is baby Jessica, and my older daughter is here as well. And my husband ended up having to work this evening. So anyway, but my dad is here, but the baby's still very much one of those ones that just likes to be by her mom, not the mama. She's stereotypical, not the mama. So I just had to try to calm her down for a minute, right? That is as a mother, that is something that is always comes into play, right? That's what some women, not all women are moms, and that's okay too, but many are, and we have to balance that.
World,
women,
those worlds.
Women and veterans and moms.
Yeah.
Happy to be here.
We have Michaela from the Air National Guard. We have Danielle Bush, Army Reserves. Sorry. Yep. And Kitara Byerly joining us, Navy Reserves, correct? Wonderful. We're going to get to all three of them. Michaela, if you have to step away, I totally understand. I have a 13-month-old upstairs who mama is taking care of her. So you may hear her scream through my mic periodically. So I completely get it. But let's dive into Michaela, into your story. Welcome. Thank you for coming on Generation 9/11. How are you tonight?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here for sure.
Definitely.
I've always enjoyed VBC events. So
Well, great.
Glad to be
And
here.
I guess the
Mhm.
first question is the easy question is, can you tell us why you decided to enlist in the Air National Guard?
Well, I initially joined, like many young people, I joined because I wasn't sure how I was going to pay for college, right? And so when I saw I got something from a recruiter, I said it would pay for tuition on a state school, and I thought, oh, that's intriguing. And I joined in March 2001, and so it was very peaceful then. Nothing was going on, and even when I went out to the recruiters, they're like, "Oh yeah, it's unlikely that you would ever have to be deployed. It is what it is." And then September 11th happened of that same year, and then everything changed. So
Where were you on the actual September 11th?
well, I hadn't gone to basic training yet. So in the National Guard, at least, they have student flights, so you can swear in, and start the process and go to drills even, but it was just to like learn more about military culture, and it was before basic training happened. So I was slated to still go to basic training in September of 2001, and I still ended up going. My flight was delayed, but so it was before basic training, but after I had sworn in.
How did you, whenever September 11th happened, how did you feel things changed, with your service, with your idea of service as well?
Right. So my idea of service did change. And I think, some family and friends especially were a bit worried, probably more than I was. But, I've always been a person of faith. I'm Christian. And at that time, I just felt like it was the right thing for my life. I had prayed about it a lot already. And so I still moved forward, even though, as a caveat, my recruiter had said, if you don't want to continue to move forward, you really don't have to. Even though I had sworn in, it was still that time in between. So I had a chance to back out, but I really didn't feel like it was the right move to change my mind. So I kept moving forward.
At what point were you actually deployed?
That was until 2008. My unit, the 171st, which I'm sure most people have heard of, they were supporting Operation Enduring Freedom at that time, and so I was tasked to go with them for a bit, and to Kyrgyzstan, and so that's what I did in 2008. It was like in between grad school, so I re-enlisted, even though originally I only had to do the 6 years, and that paid for my undergrad. But then I joined at 17. I got used to it, and then I stuck with it for a while.
Did you have a husband whenever you were deployed? Did you have kids at that point already?
I was engaged, no children at the time though.
What did he think?
I was engaged. He was concerned. He was, there was a lot of worry there. But I mean, he's never been one to, kind of say don't do it. It was, always been up to me. But yeah, there was concern at the time. And I remember having to call, and the huge time difference and all of that too.
How was the base that you were on?
It wasn't bad, it was a different, I distinctly remember, I don't know if anyone's been to Manas. Is anyone? Okay.
Well, anyway. Manas, let's see here.
But what I'm saying is
Manas Air Force Base, right?
Right. Yeah. I distinctly remember, it's kind of random, there was always like stray dogs walking around. I don't know. It was just a real different experience. Like, we really weren't allowed off base at all at the time, very much. And so, though we did get to go off base 2 times, and it was with like, there had to be 1 officer and I think a certain amount of people. But we did get to go kind of to the countryside like 1 time and meet people that live there. And
what was that like?
So that was, that was interesting. It also reminded me of like how American I am. Because I remember, I remember riding the horses, and the Kyrgyz man who was leading the horses, was speaking in its own language, and we ended up going up this huge mountain. I distinctly remember that and thinking, oh no, but we made it, obviously.
Did you have an interpreter with you?
Not that I recall.
Made it a little more difficult then, potentially.
Right. And I remember, a little bit of that American privilege, so to speak, because when we were going to people's house, that then it was like a tour, right? This is little, this tour for people from out of town. But anyway, when we got there, my horse seemed tired. So I was letting the horse drink from the stream through the mountain. And then the couple that lived there immediately stopped myself and a few of us, because that was their drinking water, because there was no running water where they lived, so that was where people drink and cattle drink from somewhere else. But it was just such an assumption for me, because we hadn't gone into the house, that okay, well, this is water outside, so I guess it's just for the
not like a full faux pas, but just like a, hey, by the way.
Right. Yeah. It's awkward.
Yeah.
It's just something I remember,
How long were you deployed?
Not that long. It was just 4 months or so, but
well, still 4 months away from your fiance, family. You're in a different country. What work did you? What was your MOS?
So I was an information manager. When I was in Pittsburgh, I worked in public affairs, doing information management work. And then over there, I was just doing a lot of admin work. There was a lot of air refueling going on. And and I didn't do that at all, but I did keep some records. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now it's a little different. Getting deployed to sort of it seemed like a safer base, but still coming back, was there still just sort of like a readjustment period?
Sure. I mean, there was a stronger appreciation for things I noticed and took for granted. Like I said, we really couldn't go off base besides that one time. So it was just nice to be able to off my car and have the freedom to go where I wanted. Also, something I noticed, right? I do a lot of comparing and contrasting by nature. And there was a couple different countries we went to, but what I noticed is how safe America is in a lot of ways. And I'm not saying other countries aren't safe, but it is certainly what I'm used to. So lines on the road is something I just assumed is always around, but in a lot of other countries, that's not a thing. And so traffic can be really dangerous, or maybe there's, over there was busy highways and cows that would come on. And this isn't anything negative to other countries, but it is America has guardrails and stoplights and lines on the road. And so I just remember thinking, oh, well, this feels, it was just things I noticed coming back. Oh, this is still more safe than, or at least more comfortable, what I'm used to.
Are you, and you're still in, correct?
No, I retired.
Oh, okay. When did you retire?
2017.
Okay, so only a few years ago. And so
recently.
Right. And did you have your kids afterwards?
No, I had a child when I was still in one, and then my second child I just had in 2020, so I was already out by then.
Was there something, did it make it more difficult when you finally started a family and you're in the Air National Guard, you have different responsibilities? How was that? How was dealing with all of those juggling balls?
You know what? It was a lot to juggle, for sure. I think something about the National Guard in the reserves that I think people maybe forget, who knows, but most of us are also working a full-time job too. And we have reserve and guard responsibilities and families, right? So then that's a lot to juggle with having, because when I first joined, I was still in college, and then I went to grad school, which is still different than having the responsibilities of a full-time job. So But also after having children, I know that there was some talk of more deployments at the base, and you know, that was when my husband was more concerned, or was concerned, because, you know, we have children. So yeah, that made it different for sure, right?
Mm-hmm.
Thinking about that sort of thing,
and
how much time I could give. Yeah.
Totally. And if, you know, being in from 01 to 17, the way that the last, those 16 years developed, you know, in Iraq and in Afghanistan, did you have your, you know, thumb on the pulse of kind of the developments over those years?
At times, working in public affairs, you know, we definitely tried to stay abreast to what was going on. And, you know, like I said, the mission, as I'm sure you know, at 171st is mainly the air refueling. And so, you know, whatever capacity I was needed, I tried to be as available as I could, with the hope of staying in Pittsburgh while being available. But yeah.
I want to share a picture here, and I do have an interesting question about this one, because this is a really kind of cool picture, I think. You know, it's kind of a famous person you're shaking hands with.
Oh, yeah.
You know, we never talk about politics here on VBC, and for good reason.
Sure.
But what I'm interested in knowing is that, you know, when you're serving, you know, like you're the top level boss is your commander in chief. So in my mind, like meeting the commander in chief has to, there's something about that. And I'm interested to hear your thoughts on what that was like.
You know, that was really great for me. I remember when the first time he came to the unit, I was actually expecting my first daughter. And funny enough, so, you know, I was always like just a traditional National Guard. I wasn't full time. And someone I knew who also knew that I really, you know, support President Obama, said, hey, he's going to be out here, you know, do you want to come out? And because I was almost, you know, I was just tired and expecting a baby, and I was like, I can't meet the president like this. I'm just going to be cranky and irritated, even though he's like my favorite. I'm going to pass. But then I kind of regretted it, and I was hoping that he would come back, and that was the first time that he had come to our unit. And sure enough, he did end up coming back, and actually so did, I think I ended up meeting him twice, but I know one of those times, Vice President Biden, who's now President Biden, was also with him. And so, yeah, it was nice. He was very personable, shaking hands with everyone. Everyone's excited. And it was a nice opportunity. Mm-hmm.
Totally. Yeah. I don't know why. I always found it to be an interesting thing of like, you know, your commander in chief may change every 4 years or may change every, you know, once in an 8-year period. But this is somebody that's, you know, kind of given the orders of where people are going and what people are doing. So, you know, I when I meet Todd, it's the same level of respect, I think.
But you got to see him in person.
Yeah.
Nice.
So you were in for quite a while. Why did you said you got in to sort of, you know, pay your way through education. Why did you decide to re-enlist?
Right. That's a great question. I think at that time, I did really appreciate the people I worked with in my office in particular. And they ended up eventually going to other offices, but, you know, kind of just got convinced, right? And also I do have a certain level of, you know, patriotism in my own way. You know, this country is certainly not without its flaws, and I'm not, you know, shy about saying that, but at the same time, I don't mind, you know, being in. My uncle is a Vietnam veteran, and you know, I just chose to re-enlist, right? I did.
You know, you bring up a good point of like, you know, the issues that the country faces. You know, obviously we hear a lot about them. Is there any issues that you faced being in the Air National Guard, being like a woman of color? You know, how was your experience?
It was. I mean, there's certainly room to grow, I think, in most institutions. And the National Guard is not exempt from that. So, and I think I was, I tried to be vocal as I needed to be. But I think it's important to see people of color, particularly Black people. I mean, I'm going to advocate for Black people because I am Black. But diversity, period, in leadership. I think, there was diversity in certain ranks and enlisted, but I would have liked to see more diversity in the officer corps, and I brought that up. And so, I appreciate that. I'm glad that I wasn't. I don't have any regrets. I'm also glad that I spoke up when needed. And still, as a veteran, I do speak up about that. So
it's great that you brought that up, because Kitara, our later guest, she a blog that came to us. Todd found this blog online of something Kitara wrote, and something she brings up in that as well is the fact that there is not enough female representation in the officer ranks. So it's something of a side theme tonight of talking about that issue, because I think I'm interested to hear from not only our guests tonight but also our audience in how can we see the military looking at this issue, and how can they make it better? How have they made it better in some ways, and how much further do they still need to go? Not an easy question to answer, and probably not one that we're going to answer tonight. But you said that you definitely spoke up whenever you had to about this, and I'm wondering if you could tell us about a time that you did.
Sure. I would really like to think that the military could be a leader in displaying for civilians what it's like to work together well, and to have true diversity. And like I reiterate, it's not only diversity in some ranks, diversity in leadership as well. I can think of an instance where I was on a small, I forget what they were called, but I was with the Army National Guard, even though I was still Air National Guard. And long story, it's not really a long story, but I overheard someone telling like a blatantly racist joke, like with racial slurs, the whole thing. So I say something to the person, and it was her response that was more frustrating, because then she says, "Oh, I didn't know you were still in the room," which to me, obviously, it's not that there was any apology for the statement, but just that it was heard. So then there was an officer in the room who was kind of like laughing along with the person. And so I directly and swiftly spoke with her too. That person was not from my unit. I spoke to an officer that I trusted from my unit, and the person, both the officer and the enlisted person, did apologize. But the point is, things like that really can't be tolerated when we work side by side, Right. And so that was one thing. I also think, celebrating diversity is important. I know that at the time that I was in, I don't think they have it anymore, but the 171st used to have Black History Month events that I used to be involved in. So,
have you seen, over your course of your service, have you seen some change in the Air National Guard towards a more diverse train of thought, trying to bring in or recruit more diverse candidates?
Well, when I was there, I'm going to give that a hard no, to be honest. But but I think they're probably aware of the issue. And I have seen some people, go to other units and get to advance. And so, whatever individuals have to do to advance their career, that's what we're going to do. So if they end up at another unit, then, I guess they've ended up missing out on some great talent. But,
that's one of and that's one of the biggest issues is how much talent are we missing out on because of the roadblocks that we see in getting into the military. And did you have any trouble getting into the Air National Guard whenever you decided to enlist?
No, I had no trouble getting in at all. I will say that at the time they went to my high school, which was, well, not they didn't, but there was a ASVAB test that was administered at Woodland Hills at the time, and I took the ASVAB, and then I got a lot of different letters, and that they were just one of the letters that came in that struck my attention. So,
I want to open it up.
Yeah, I do think recruiting, though, I do think that like intentional recruiting in diverse areas is like one way that can make a difference.
Todd, you look like you were just about to say something. I only see you whip off the glasses whenever a thought strikes you.
No, I'm gonna mute myself until I can't take it anymore. No, this is so fascinating and so wonderful. I don't want to interrupt the flow.
But I do want to open it up also. Reminder to our audience, if you have any questions for Michaela about her experience, please chime in. If there's anything in the chat, Todd, just let me know. Michaela, thank you so much.
Okay, I can't take it anymore. I need to say something.
See, I knew it. I was just gonna ramble until I knew that he was gonna.
Michaela, this is your testimony and your explanation of your service is wonderful. We've been going back and forth here in the chat, and one thing we're talking about is like, I knew that you were at Manas, right? That's how you pronounce it, Manas Air Force Base.
Yes.
All right, and I knew that, but I really had no idea where Manas was. I always pictured it in Kyrgyzstan and right over the border from Afghanistan. It's far from Afghanistan. Dave Seaver was there also. Oh, I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Oh, Kyrgyzstan?
Yeah.
There we go.
Oh, sorry. Okay. You were asking about
Manas.
Right. And how close is it to Afghanistan? You know what? I know that they were doing a lot of alert missions there. And I mean, they were like refueling I think it was Army jets, right? Fighter jets there, right? I could be mistaken, but I don't think I am. And for the people that were going, so that they wouldn't have to land in Afghanistan. So,
right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It was a lot of alert missions. So we would be in the same room. It was 12-hour shifts. So we would just be in the same room for a long time, and then you would like switch.
Yeah. And I know this is off topic, but we were having a little fun in the chat saying like,
sure.
What country is it in? How do you spell the name of that country? How close is it to Afghanistan? And Dave Seaver, who was stationed there, who's on this Zoom call, said that that it was a 2.5-hour flight to Afghanistan from Manas.
You're closer to Russia.
Yeah.
Than you are
it
to
was
Afghanistan.
so close to Russia. There was beautiful mountains there. We also I remember passing through Kazakhstan for a bit while there.
And you were right on the
My
border.
baby's fussy.
Oh.
Yeah, Todd, I wasn't stationed there. I just transited through when I went to Afghanistan and when I came home from Afghanistan.
Okay, thank you.
But I spent a few days there basically twiddling my thumbs because there wasn't a lot for the people in transit to do.
Okay. So that's why you were bored to your socks.
Pretty much. One day I got my hair cut because it killed 30 minutes.
Wait a minute. It took 30 minutes to cut your hair?
Well, I had to walk over there and then I had to wait and then I get my hair cut and walk back. So
Understood. We've been having an interesting time on our podcast, The Scuttlebutt, talking about different bases all across the country, or around the world, I should say. And this could be one that we touch on. A reason why the United States has an air base in Kyrgyzstan would probably be a good opportunity for us to tell our audience about, why we're there and what we're doing there.
I agree.
But thank you, Michaela. Please hang out as long as you can with baby in tow. And if any questions pop up, we'll definitely direct them to you. I'm going to pop over next to Danielle Bush. Danielle, excited for you to join us this evening. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you. Second year in a row. I'm excited.
Yeah, we were just mentioning before we started tonight that you were a part of the last live event that we did last year. at Point Park University. You're an alumni from there. And it brought a tear to our eye for thinking about the last time we were live and in person, which I feel like we should have held you off until the last Zoom call that we've done, so that we, can bookend both of those.
Full circle.
You sent me over your bio, and I mentioned that, it seems so foreign to me and it seems so dangerous. But right now you're a platoon sergeant, correct?
Yes, transitioning, but yes.
So you've recently gained the rank, right?
So I have been a platoon sergeant for the past year. I'm actually transitioning to a new company right now. So.
Okay. What is that like? Full disclosure, I'm not a veteran, so it doesn't sound like, I would leave my job and go to another job. It sounds like it's more of a big deal.
Just paperwork, honestly. I'm going to be doing the same job, same position, just in a different company. With different people, yeah.
Is it difficult though to transition to a new company and have to sort of assert yourself, gain a new reputation?
I'm not sure. I've been in the same one for 9 years, so this will be my first time moving, actually.
Will you miss the one that you're in currently?
Oh my goodness, yes. I've been with those soldiers for 9 years, so yes, I will definitely miss them. They are very important to me. So,
being the military, was it your choice to move to the other company, or did they repurpose you? I'm not sure what the term is.
Repurpose, I like that. No, it was my choice.
Okay.
I'm getting married in April, and
okay.
So.
And can you tell us what your actual MOS is? Because I mentioned that it seemed really dangerous, but I'll let you talk about it, because I definitely do not have the technical know-how to describe it.
It sounds way cooler than it is. I'm a chem, bio, rad, and nuclear specialist, a 74 Delta.
And why did you decide to go into that MOS?
So I was finishing my junior year of college when I joined, and my bachelor's is a bachelor's of science in national security and intelligence, and a minor in criminal justice. So I took a lot of classes on weapons of mass destruction and that whole realm. So when I went to join and they offered me CBERN, which is pretty much chem and bio defense, I chose that one.
I guess that makes it pretty simple then. And what year did you enlist?
2012. Okay.
And how soon after you enlisted were you actually deployed?
2018 is when I was overseas, so 6 years.
Okay. And what was your time like until then? Was it what you thought it would be whenever you enlisted?
No, joke's on me. The whole 2 weeks in a year and every 1 weekend per month never existed. When I first joined the unit, we were on a white mission. So we were hazardous response for stateside. We were actually under Homeland Security for the first 2 years. So I did a lot of training for that. And then shortly afterwards, we picked up the Strikers, the NBCRVs. So I went away a few months for that. So, I mean, even before I went overseas, I had enough retirement points to have 2 years active duty in my first 4 years in the Army. So we were constantly being sent places and had training to attend. So,
and what do you mean by white missions? Does white mission mean like sort of United States, like, you're dealing with things here?
Yes, Homeland. So green
Homeland,
is always going to be overseas, any of our defensive equipment. White is always Homeland. So stateside.
Okay. And when you were deployed, where did they send you?
So I was in Kuwait most of the time. Strikers are $4 million a piece. We flew 4 of them over there, and where they are, I have to be. So thankfully, we didn't need to use the NBCRVs, but I stayed in Kuwait most of the time, and then I spent my last month there in Saudi Arabia for a month.
And this is what you're talking about, the actual vehicle, correct?
Yes, my baby. That's her.
So we made mention about this before we started the program. We were like, that is an ugly vehicle. But you agreed.
It is.
It's not a Corvette, but it gets the job done. Can you tell us why, everywhere these things go, you go, but why is that? What is it about these vehicles that are so important?
The price that the Army paid for them. Also, they're only ran with a 4-man crew. So your crew, your truck, you have to be close to be able to be mission capable.
So you had like a team of 16 that ran all 4 of these.
Exactly.
Okay.
And you rode 2 vehicle squads.
If you can see her head's poking out right here. This being, is this training?
Yes, this was in Muscatatuck, Indiana. They actually created kind of like a natural disaster at an old guard base where we all have to go and train. And they bring in reporters and FEMA and mass casualty decon, MPs. So it's a really cool training site. But yes, I believe we were practicing a dismounted recon mission, detecting chem and bio.
And how do they, I'm guessing you're working with equipment that would be helpful in detecting this. How would they, I guess, fool the equipment into thinking that you are actually detecting something, or do they actually put hazardous materials around that you are detecting?
No, a lot of the equipment to test it comes with dummy rounds, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So they just place that in a room in a village, and you have to go and retrieve it and find it.
And I want to get back to the vehicle here, because we found a website that this vehicle has something really interesting. I'm going to share my screen here, and I need you to tell me what this is. Or
okay, so the whole purpose of the MBCRVs is to be able to go into a hazardous zone, but not have to get out of your vehicle to perform dismounted recon. They actually have an pressurization system, which means we can breathe internally the entire time and never be contaminated or run out of oxygen. So to collect samples, we have to stick our hand out of that glove. And then on the outside of the vehicle, right where the glove port is your tongs. There's right under where those little poles are, those black poles.
Here?
There's a door. Yeah, there's a 2-sided door where you can drop yourself sample jars in. Those tubes are actually to drop paperwork often. So say we did collect a sample, and where the little glove in the hand is, that's actually a sample jar. Once that's collected, you push it in that tube with the paperwork. And then when you need to drop off the sample or you go through decon, they can pull that out from the outside of the vehicle without contaminating us.
That's incredible. If you're internally breathing inside of the vehicle, how hot does it get in there? Is it uncomfortable?
No, it has air conditioning.
Of course it does.
Yeah. So the air filtration system can't work without the air conditioner. So they actually have to, it's called a CCOPS. It has to be ran at the same time. Climate control over pressurization system. There we go. It's coming back to me.
But it's still like, I mean, in the middle of the desert, I would think it might bake a little. Like even if you have AC, it might still feel a bit hot. And are you in mop suits as well?
Not technically, no. No, because we're not getting out of the vehicle. So sometimes when we train, they would have us put mop gear on, but no, it's not technically necessary. And the vents are strong. So you only have 4 people, but it's very crowded on the inside with all the CBRN equipment. But you just lay under that vent. Sometimes we take like cardboard from the MRE boxes to like kind of direct the vent directly towards us. So there's ways you can finagle.
Yeah. Whenever you joined, what did your family think, especially going into this type of specialty?
So it's a good question. So my brother was medically discharged out of the military. He's 100% disabled to this day. So I'm sure when my mom, I wanted to follow in my brother's footsteps, but also I needed to finish college as well. Mm-hmm. And I know she was scared, but she also knew the daughter she raised. So it's not like she was going to be like, oh, let's stay home. No, she's the first one like, all right, let's go. I'll help you. We'll sign you up. And that's, yeah, and it's very impressive. Unfortunately, my brother he has probably 20% vision left. He had to get one of his eyes removed. He was deployed to Fallujah. He was infantry. So even going through all that with him, they both are huge supporters of me wanting to join the military and join the Army.
Were either of them military?
My brother, yes.
Well, your parents, I mean, I'm sorry.
Oh, no. My grandfather was an Air Force pilot. My aunts both served in the Army as well. I had 2 aunts.
Wow. I can't imagine. That's such a level of support that's difficult for me to imagine from a parent. Like after seeing what your son has gone through and saying, yeah, you want to do this, like, I'm 100% behind you. But I'm sure they knew that you were gung-ho about it and that you weren't going to be told no. Like it, what a way to honor your brother too. What did he feel about you joining?
So he was scared, but he also knows MOSs, right? Like he knows I didn't join to be infantry like him. In the reserves, we're all combat support. So you will not find combat arms in reserves. And I think that gave him reassurance on the type of job I was going to do in the military. But he is the first one at every ceremony, any family event. So he was there at the airport picking me up when I came home from my tour. Mm-hmm. He's super supportive and very loving.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Have you had to re-enlist already through your service?
Yes, I actually re-enlisted overseas.
And was this that picture?
Yes.
A lot of people, you see a lot of pictures on different military like news websites of like send in your best re-enlistment photo of people like re-enlisting on an anchor or in front of like a missile going off. How did you pick this spot? Was it like I want to do this special in this spot?
That's actually our motor pool. So no, we were just in our motor pool. Those are my strikers in the background. I wanted those in the picture. But that was pretty much it. I handpicked the soldiers that I worked a long time with that I really respected to hold my flag during my re-enlistment ceremony. But nope, that's just our motor pool attached to our top.
And I don't really know much about a re-enlistment ceremony. Can you tell me like what it is and why it means so much?
Well, some people don't re-enlist more than once, so you got to make it count. I believe the people that hold your flag are very, dear to your heart. I will have this photo. Hopefully my future kids will have this photo, and I hope that they know that the people behind me are there for a reason. And the officer, he was my lieutenant. We spent quite a few years together. So I really appreciate that he was the one that read me the oath. So.
That's awesome. And I want to pose the same question to you that I posed to Michaela. What was it like joining in as a woman into the Army Reserve, and what was that experience like for you?
I think I was naive. Because I joined at 22. I was an adult. I've already been living life at this point, paid my bills on my own, lived in an apartment on my own. So going to basic training with these children, these 17, 18-year-old kids, it was very interesting. But I realized quite early that it's not always, the brotherhood, sisterhood that you'd hope to experience, right? Like I was definitely put in situations in basic training where I felt uncomfortable around superior men or my drill sergeants. So I learned very early to, be very strong and affirmative with my words, to not be bullied, and definitely not take harassment.
And when you were deployed, was that different? I'm sure they had separate areas for women and for men. What was it like being deployed as a woman?
So my platoon was split up in 2 different bases in Kuwait, and I ended up with only 5 out of the 16, which is already small enough as it is. But they were
There were only 16 women that were deployed with you.
No, my platoon, there was only 16 people. I was the only female in my platoon.
Oh, okay.
But only 5 of us got kept on this particular base, right? So I was nervous at first because, you know, you're in a whole new country by yourself. I didn't have a quote female battle buddy, so it was interesting at first. But I also knew the men that were in my platoon. I've been with them for the past 6 years, so I trusted them. And eventually, I made friends and met other women. But I really never felt unsafe while I was in Kuwait, especially. Saudi Arabia, not really. We had armed guards and escorts all the time. The only time I felt unsafe is when I had to be in a full abaya if I wanted to visit, you know, Riyadh or any of those cities, because women have to enter in the back door. They always have to be escorted by a man. They're not with a man. You have to use the back door, and you have to sit in a particular section. So it's very interesting.
Tell me more about Saudi Arabia, because you were there to do a training as well, right?
Right. So me and my counterpart, staff star, not important her name, but this was actually the 3rd phase of this operation. So the first 2 times they brought seaborne soldiers over to train with Saudi Arabia in their chem and bio defense. They only allowed males. So phase 3, the opportunity that I had to go over there, I was the first time they were going to experience working with women in the United States Army relating to chem and bio defense. So it was a lot of pressure, but we were there for 3 weeks. I did my best to be very respectful of their culture and only give advice if it was asked of me, and just try to be helpful for what we were there to do. And
did you
eventually,
receive? I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, the last day, they all took photos with me. It was like this big excitement that there were, you know, 2 women there training with their armed forces. So the last day was just selfies, it seemed.
Was that this by chance?
Yes, but that went on the entire night. So they had a night mission that I had to evaluate them on. And afterwards, they were very kind and open, and I really appreciated that. It took a good week and a half for them to warm up to talking to a woman or approaching me for advice, but we got through it.
That's so interesting. And so I guess that was a big time culture shock. Did the Army train you to go into this, you know, like this is what is expected, this is what to expect?
So before we went there, we had meetings, meetings about what we were going to teach while we were over there, meetings about the culture, you know, having cultural understanding and humility for what we're about to step into. They made me aware that I was going to have to wear an abaya the whole time, which is, you know, was the whole outfit with the headscarf. And I was fine with it. When I actually flew into Saudi, I didn't have a headscarf on, and he's like, the TSA guy or whatever they're called there. He said, "You're American, aren't you?" Like he knew, because I walked in there and I didn't mean to. I just, from there on out, I had it on. But he's like, "No, they actually are kinder to foreign women. It's their own women that, you know, they're not allowed to drive, and they'll run them off the road." And
did that help to give you, like, was there some level of context, like as Michaela had mentioned, like coming back to the States, there's just like, it's so different whenever you came back. Was it sort of like a reculture shock? Like, oh, like, you know, I understand, like there's an appreciation for what the differences are, or what were your thoughts there?
Oh my gosh, I was appreciative of a lot of things, but it was also awareness, right? So not every woman over there feels oppressed. Some of them are very grateful for their lives. They enjoy that their husband is the provider, and they don't work and stay at home with the kids. And then there's some women that want more rights and want more responsibilities. So just understanding that not every person is the same, and it's not me to judge their situation.
Mm-hmm.
And just being respectful and mindful of it, you know, while I'm in their country and working along their armed forces.
It's a great point. I had never really thought in the things that I'm reading about the last 20 years of the global war on terror, and a lot of the soldiers' stories talking about the culture that they're working with over in Iraq, Afghanistan, the Middle East in general, that there would also be women there that want to live within sort of, I say, this level of oppression that we sort of say here in America, like, this level of oppression can't stand. We, you know, the new Iraqi government comes into the Afghanistan government, Taliban, you know, with the peace talks we're having, we're like, you have to have women's rights, you know, that there might be people that say, no, what this is actually works for me. It's very interesting. How have you seen the Army Reserves change over the course of your service? You know, do you feel that they are becoming more accepting of women in the ranks and, you know, integration of women into the military?
I mean, come on, Major General Jody Daniels. She is the commanding general of the United States Army Reserves. It's a great time to be in the Army Reserves. She is the first woman ever. So I mean, obviously we've come a very long way, mm-hmm. especially with women in ranks and in leadership position. So I'm very proud to be an Army Reservist under Major General Jody Daniels. That's awesome.
Have you had the chance to meet her? And if you haven't, that's fine. But what would you say to her if you did?
Thank you. Like, finally, you opened the door. Now the rest can come through. So I'm very excited about that. I almost had a chance to meet her. She was supposed to be on a Zoom call, I think back in August or September. She was supposed to pop in, and something ended up happening where she didn't. But I hope in the next couple of years that she is serving in that title, that I get to meet her. Awesome. Tell her what an honor it is.
I'll bet, definitely. Danielle, thank you. You know, I always feel like, you know, we have 90 minutes and we fly through all of our programs and everything goes so quickly. But it's great to just hear a bit of the story and understand a bit more of your service and understand more of a different culture, you know, just hearing something new and learning something new here. Please stick around as we're going to have Q&A and also just discussion, and also want to continue the conversation here.
Thank you very much. Hi, Miss Julia, by the way. Happy belated birthday.
Thank you.
Julia.
Thank you very much. So,
how is it feeling being 100, Julia?
No different.
No different. Like, just another day in paradise.
Yeah, just hard to realize. Other than that, it's good. I'm still getting cards, and yesterday I got 2 presents. So I'm willing to extend it for the whole year from my
And she's doing another interview tomorrow with the World War II Foundation, is coming in, bringing a camera crew, interviewing Julia. You know that, right, Julia?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Good. Good.
Legend. She's a legend.
Yes. Yes. Do you know what we were saying? And not to sidetrack this, but Julia, Carnegie Mellon University has 2. I think Angela was saying that. Angela and I were going back and forth about this. Has 2 Enigma machines.
Yeah.
And we thought it would be so much fun to go to CMU and maybe do an event with you with the Enigma machine there, and having a little lesson in how it worked and when things open up, right, Angela? That's what we were talking about. That'd be so neat.
Would be good. I was there when the woman presented the artifacts. She had
Right.
many interesting machines there, fascinating machinery. So,
Julia,
unfortunately, they didn't have all the equipment, so you couldn't run the machine. But it did look familiar.
But it looked familiar.
Yes,
That's neat.
it was there.
Julia, the Enigma being a piece of like a historic technology, I know that we all get really mad at our cell phones whenever they don't work. Was there a point where the Enigma machine wasn't doing what you wanted it to do and you just wanted to kick it?
No, it always did what we wanted it to do.
Never
They're not built like that anymore. That's
German technology.
Absolutely. Absolutely. was good.
Hey, Sean, can I ask Julia a question real quick?
Of course, Mary.
Hi, everybody. The Imitation Game, Julia, did you ever see that movie? And when you were working on Enigma, did you guys know, or you ladies, did you all know about Alan Turing?
What was the question again?
Oh, the movie about the Enigma machine with Alan Turing.
Yeah.
Did you see the movie?
Yes. Oh, yes.
And
very good.
Yeah. Did you know him at the time when you were doing
No,
that work?
no.
So information wasn't being exchanged.
He only came to the States once, and then he was not impressed at all with he went to the Ohio plant where they were making the computers. And he didn't think this was going to work at all. And he went back to England and never came back again that I know of.
Wow.
So
Well, you ladies showed him.
But he did do a fantastic job. I'll say that for him. Amazing.
Definitely. Cool.
Thank you, Mary, and thank you, Julia. I want to get to our last guest before we fully open up for open discussion here. Kitara Byerly, you're new to VBC. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here, and this is a great group. Really, it's nice to be. Actually, Julia, I would love to know more about your story, man, because that is really incredible to have our World War II veterans here.
Thank you.
We have, I think, a full interview with Julia on our website, Kitara. We can get that to you as well, so that you can hear a lot more about all the things that Julia did, which were legendary. So you're joining us from Texas, is that right?
That is correct. Yes.
Todd came across you because he was researching and found a Navy blog that you wrote, your Navy Reserves, correct?
That is correct. Yep.
Okay, so we have the Marines represented tonight. I did it, Todd.
And I'm watching Jack Morrow's reaction. Jack was with us until you said, so we have the Marines represented tonight. And he's like, what are you talking about? Jack Morrow's a World War II Marine, served on Okinawa.
Wonderful. Thank you, sir. Wow, that's great. That's great.
But in this blog that you wrote for the Navy, you listed out the troubles that you had joining into the Navy. And I thought I'd give you some time here to talk about what you went through and kind of what led you to write this blog, because you sort of listed out the issues, the problems experiencing in creating a more diverse and inclusive military. And you offered up some solutions as well. And we thought they were fascinating. And that's why we decided to invite you onto the program. We thought you could talk a bit about that, but also talk about your service. You had a large passion to join and serve the country.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yes. Well, so the first time my dad was a Navy veteran, and in school, it wasn't really much encouraged in small town South Dakota where I graduated. It wasn't much encouraged for the ladies to go to the well during that time. Later, when I went to Hawaii during 9/11, I was on a beach in Hawaii, and we were talking about the towers falling, and I walked over later, a couple weeks later, to a recruiter, and it was a Marine recruiter actually, and I said, well, I would like to join the military now, because we'd heard a little bit about 9/11 and what had happened, and things were starting to fall down, and I said, yeah, I think I'd like to join the military, and they said, no, we're not taking females right now, and I didn't know enough about the military in general, that's the Marines, and the Marines were looking for infantry. And of course, women were not at that time serving in combat. And that if I'd gone next door to the Navy or the Army, I could have maybe found a different position. Air Force, I could have maybe found a different one, but he didn't encourage that at all.
He just was like straight blank, no, sorry.
No, awful. Thank you. And I said, well, couldn't I do something like medical or be a medic or, maybe admin, something? And I had a bachelor's degree in theater and film at that time. I was like, maybe I could take some pictures. I don't know. What do you guys have?
You're giving me hope, Kitara, because I have a bachelor's degree in acting. So I've always said, the military's not looking for me.
I know. Yeah. I told that joke to a group of sailors the other day in Gulfport, Mississippi. And I was like, what does a theater major say to the business majors? And they were like, what? I was like, do you want fries with that? That's what we say. Terrible.
Thank you for that. I'm taking that one. I will give you credit. That's useful.
It was tough. It was tough trying to make it with my degree, but my theater degree. But I really have to say, like, going back to that, that discouraged me for many years from joining. Mm-hmm. And then later, when I was going to acupuncture school, we were treating a lot of veterans, and I was hearing some really interesting stories from women. And it was great to get to hear these different diverse troops talking about their experience in different forms of military. Mm-hmm. And
that time, and what years were those, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, I went to acupuncture school, came here for Austin, Texas, acupuncture school, 2005 to 2010. And we were helping out after the Fort Hood shooting in 2009 with mm-hmm. Soldiers that had been impacted by that. And so we were working on them in our student clinics and just different troops that would come down to Austin, Texas for treatment. And then I started, once I was licensed in 2011, mm-hmm. I went up to Fort Hood in order to try and treat with acupuncture, yoga, and Tai Chi and Qigong soldiers that had been impacted. And just, I was volunteering with the Red Cross at that time. Mm-hmm. Boss was a Navy veteran officer. And so she'd served 10 years and then gotten out and was working in the GS position. And she really encouraged me to try and join again. Mm-hmm. And at that time I was a single mom. And so what happened was I went to a recruiter and I said, all right, I think I'd like to join. And do you have anything for officers? And I was young enough at that time. I was like 30. I don't remember what I was, 30 something.
In the 30s.
In the 30s.
Yeah, we can leave it at that.
Still very fit. Yes, right. No, I'll divulge my age. That's okay. But anyway, but it was like still very fit, like doing CrossFit and triathlons. And again, the recruiters were like, well, you're just going to have to completely give up custody of your children and like to your mom or, an uncle or to the dad of your children. And then you can join. And I was like, why would I do that? That's a terrible idea. So, yeah. So at that time I turned around. I didn't join at that time. And these were for active duty. Again, I wasn't aware enough of the makeup of the force that, mm-hmm. reserves was different. Active duty was only looking for this.
Now, I'm sorry to interrupt, Kitara, but I'm thinking like you're using acupuncture on soldiers, they're dealing with different ailments, different things. Did that in any way deter you from wanting to enlist? If you were seeing people dealing with PTSD or different things that, ailments, did that cross your mind at all?
That's what really grabbed me. It was that esprit de corps that I felt that the incredible stories, the amazing spirit of the people that I was treating. And one day I was treating a lady that I had seen quite a lot, and she seemed very, very much in shock. And I said to her, are you okay? And she said, well, last night I lost my battle buddy. And a lot of our soldiers at that time were having service dogs. So mm-hmm. Maybe somehow she had lost her dog or, like something had happened. And in our conversation, it turns out that her roommate had committed suicide in their room that night. And she had woken up to this, and she was just in shock because that was her battle buddy who was going to be there to help support her. Mm-hmm. And in my mind, immediately, I thought, I'll be your battle buddy. Like that was the first thought, like, I'll be your battle buddy. I'm going to do this. Wow. And it was after treating her, I got her back on her feet, and we started working with the chaplains with her. And I got to see her make it through that and leave military service and go on to VA care. But it was immediate for me that I was definitely going to join at that time. And so I just kept fighting until I found a way in. But they changed policies and they allowed families to use a family care plan instead of giving up custody. So
that sort of helped the self-process that. Did she end up being, in the blog, you talk about having female mentors or female heroes to sort of give you that sort of guidance to learn how to get through the red tape and be able to enlist?
Yes. And that was that Navy captain administrator. And then also there was a colonel who was in charge of our library at the hospital. And she was just instrumental to me. She was wonderful. She was a woman of color, as well as just this full bird colonel. And she held so much respect. And she was like, you're going to do whatever you need to do to get in. Because if it's in your heart to go serve, you're going to go serve. And I thought, yes, I totally. She was definitely instrumental in that.
And what did it feel like when you finally did? Like, it was years. This was, almost over a decade, right? Of like trying to, like, thinking about doing it, and you finally did it. What was that like?
At 39. Mm-hmm. Mostly my thought was, don't break, because I got to make it through boot camp till I stay in.
But in the blog, you mentioned that you were in tip-top shape at that point.
I was, yeah. But I still didn't like roll an ankle or anything, Yeah. But yeah, I was one of the fastest ladies in boot camp. So at first I was the fastest lady. And then the last day, me and another lady were like neck and neck. And I was like, I'll let her have it. But she was 19. But, I was at 39. I was one of the fastest people in boot camp. So.
I can't get out of bed. I'm sure most of our audience here can't get out of bed in the morning without their knees creaking. So
they would catch me doing push-ups when they were, when they were disciplining other sailors for not cleaning the bathrooms. Like I'd get down, I'd start doing push-ups too. And they're like, Byerly, what are you doing? Get up. Like you were cleaning the bathroom.
You were doing it with the guys that were being punished?
Yeah, it was like just camaraderie, just doing camaraderie. I'm like, these are my shipmates, but also I just really liked the PT. It was great.
Wow.
Yeah.
This is incredible. Okay. So you're in, there's this rush of like, I'm here, I'm doing this. I'm finally in. How has that been? How has this been everything that you've wanted it to be?
It has. It really has. So, when I joined, I'd put forward an officer candidacy because I already had a bachelor's degree, a 4-year bachelor's, and then a 5.5-year master's. So I had 9.5 years of higher education. Mm-hmm. That time, it was probably around like 350 some credit hours of higher education. Mm-hmm. And my degrees didn't really lend themselves to an officer candidacy for the Navy. And I thought, well, I don't want to miss out on serving. If I served 20 years as enlisted, I'd be happy. But if I miss out on serving, that would really hurt, Mm-hmm. Well, I got in as enlisted, and I kept putting forward officer candidacies, packages for different things. But my master's degree, even though it was 223 credit hours on its own, it's like 120 from undergraduate, 223 for at Masters of Acupuncture. Mm-hmm. It didn't qualify me for any specific programs within the Navy. And so I would keep putting forward these packages, and they'd be like, you're a great candidate, but we have somebody who directly fits this officer candidacy. So I've really enjoyed my enlisted time as well. And I was, given that advice, like, even if you're putting in candidacies to try and achieve these higher goals, you really need to keep enjoying where you're at, mentoring other people, and take full advantage of all the training that's available. So I've been doing that as well. And that's been amazing, just amazing time.
Wow. I get this overwhelming sense of you're a person that you have so much energy, for one, but this level of the esprit de corps. Where do you think that comes from with you? Is it your family? Were you brought up in that? Like, how did that develop?
Well, yes, it's like I have generations that have served in different types of like navies and different in the military, and then my dad being in the Navy. But it was that sense of, I want to fix veterans, like I want to fix military. And part of that group allowed me to understand. When I would hear someone say, I'm going away on duty for 5 months, I had no idea. That was a sentence until I did it. And what was that like for my family? And so that, to me, that was where I would say, oh, wow, look, like now I've got this experience about it. I completed 4 months in Gulfport, Mississippi this last year, processing people for the Navy because of COVID. So we were activating sailors and getting them to their ships and holding them in what's called restriction of movement. So we'd hold them for 2 weeks in a hotel room and test them for COVID. Mm-hmm. And it's being part of that bigger movement that's helping America. It was really important for me. So, but yeah, probably because my dad was a Navy veteran, and he passed well before any of this happened. He passed when I was 19, but he was on the Enterprise, blue water veteran for Vietnam. That pride of like, I can be a part of this and I can help out however I can. That's probably where it came from.
And I think that spirit is kind of what leads us to this next piece that we wanted to talk with you about, is that you recently lost your Marine husband to suicide.
Yes.
But this level that you still want to help, and you feel that honoring him, and we're so honored to have you on here to talk about his service and find a way to help other veterans deal with what he was going through.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah. So, and by the way, the joke about the Navy, I think I heard the box wiggle a little bit when I was about the Marine Corps being part of the Navy. Showing that Marine pride. No. Yeah. So yeah, he had served for 4 years from 99 to 2002. Mm-hmm. And he got out shortly after, like 2002. And he kind of regretted getting out. And then in 2018, he got back into the Army Reserve. And that was a big part of that, because I said, babe, if I can do it, you can totally do it. And we'd been married in 2015, just before I went off, 2015. And then I went off to boot camp in 2016. And it was great, like there was a lot of excitement about, he supported my career, like really supported my career. Whereas my family was kind of lukewarm about it. He came up from Texas, he drove to Great Lakes and saw me for the graduation ceremony and filmed everything. And it was really neat. It was really neat. Like just the fact that he drove for 36 straight hours or whatever that was to get there for that one little ceremony. And you get 6 hours with your sailor, and then you got to drop us back off. We're off to our next training location.
I feel like a 36-hour drive for a Marine is kind of like a day at the beach.
Yeah, I know. Stuff like that. He could do long trips like that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. He supported me when many of my family did not. So he worked nights. So we took our son, and I guess this is part of the other story. So in 2003, I met him and we got engaged and we got pregnant. And then he was kind of PTSD. He was kind of violent, physically violent. And I left him, and we were going to get counseling. And then he got together with an old girlfriend. I left for Hawaii and I had the baby alone. And so I had our son, and I came down to Texas and went to acupuncture school, was raising our son alone. And then I met somebody, got married, had a daughter. And then later in 2010 was divorced. And so, found that I guess I could say I found my bigger purpose in my military service with acupuncture, right? Mm-hmm. And I started on that whole career path and direction, running my own private practice at the same time to support myself and my children. And then he and I married again in 2015. Like, he came to Texas and we just eloped. And at the time of that photo, we had just finished off a protection order because he had threatened to kill himself and me. So it was not a pretty 5 years, and I think a lot of military families go through that. There was a lot of love, there was a lot of support, but there was a lot of drama. And he was never diagnosed with PTSD. He was never, how do I put it? Like, for us in our life, he was very functional. Mm-hmm. And the violence would be very, very sporadic, like once every couple of months, and in a very quick, like push or shove or something like that. And then it would be over and done. And then as they talk about in abuse cycles, the boot licking comes around, right? And mm-hmm. and it would be like, let's just take care of the family and let's make sure this is great. And I'm going to support you going to whatever training you need to go to, or go serving for 4 months, wherever. And it seemed like when we were away serving, everything was good. And I hear that from a lot of military families. So, part of me grieving is helping and sharing with other families in the military. Like, there are resources, there are really good resources, and the choice is not necessarily like all or nothing, right? Like, we could have to much better resources. He was because he was never treated for PTSD as part of his veterans disability at the VA, and he committed suicide. My children have no services through the VA. They have no education benefits for him. It's just all like gone. So I wish he had reported for services. That's kind of.
I find that incredible. And, the amount of red tape that you've already had to go through to be able to serve, and then to deal with more red tape on top of that through this tragedy, it's terrible.
Well, it's not, it is what it is. And when we fight through and we see the trouble, when we see what can be fixed, we start making amends to different things. We start trying to push on different areas. I did call a recruiter and I said, I would be interested in going more active duty at this time, because I just got my MBA in healthcare this year. I do. And she said, well, you're a single mom now, right? And I was like, yeah, because my military husband committed suicide. So yeah, I'm a single mom. She's like, well, single moms are no longer allowed to join the military again. You can't lie. So,
whenever you zig, they zag, and it's over and over.
They passed a directive. So not even with the family care plan, you'd have to give up your kids in custody. And I was like, well, maybe this is like, okay, part of me is now going to the DOD and saying, hey, is there a way to amend this? There was a directive one way. Can we make it a directive another way again? But that whether or not I get any benefit from it, I think that's an important voice. So
definitely. Did you, this may be an odd question. Did you feel that things normalized whenever you were deployed? Because that's what was normal. Being deployed was what made things feel normal.
When I was on orders, or when he was on orders, life was beautiful. It was great. I'm so proud of you. We would both be there for each other for that. So, that was, and my family would be like, oh, you're gone so much. And he would defend me against them. Oh no, she's serving her country. It's wonderful. So it's really one of my biggest supporters in the military. And that's why I say there's, in those relationships where there's that drama in the military and those families, there is a lot of love. There's a lot of support. And then people are struggling as well. And so, we were offered different services, because I would talk to my command about what was going on, and we were offered different services, but it was like, I would use something, but we wouldn't engage fully in it. So now again, it's part of me is how can I help other people get connected to these services? How can I help veterans get connected to the right services?
And maybe as a civilian, what should I know more about military families and the issues and troubles that they deal with?
Right. A lot of times people are fighting their battles behind closed doors because they really want to hold the status quo for their service. They don't want to lose their service, right? The military and the veteran suicide hotlines have, definitely the veteran suicide hotline here in Texas. I called and I checked out different services that they had after he had passed away. And I said, what could you have done? They could have sent out social workers to the home. So, instead of the police being called and it being such an event that would trigger maybe a command call, the social workers would have come out and they would have talked to him about the services they offer and how to get connected to better services. The spouses have better services available to them. So spouses, family caretakers, members, they have different access now through the VA that's available. And all these outlying organizations like Danielle works at, where it connects people, families, women, it's like a social services connection. They have all these available now. And the VA itself is like the hub, and these different organizations are like little spokes in a wheel that we can maximize. And we weren't aware of that. We didn't reach out beyond the home for any of that.
Being an acupuncturist, and I'm so happy that my brother joined in for this conversation. Being an acupuncturist, this is sort of Eastern medicine.
Yes.
Do you find in the sort of the issues that you have had to go through, do you find healing through that Eastern medicine as well?
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. So the easiest way to describe acupuncture is I say it's a lot like a series of garden hoses in your body, and your pain or mental anguish, whatever you got going on, emotion, is like a rock stuck in that garden hose. And the needle is like a little water spigot. We're going to put the water spigot on, we're going to turn it on, and it's going to flush all the rocks out of the garden hoses. Like 5,000 years, medicine, in like one sentence. Anyway.
You know, I've been talking to him about this for 2 years, and that's the best description I have heard of it.
On the water, out it goes. It's great. So, but so I love it. I utilize it a lot. I go on a regular basis, probably right now, once a week, every other week now, counseling. So because acupuncture can be as effective as talk therapy for different issues like depression and anxiety, but it's best when used in combination. So we were using a family psychologist who was also a retired chaplain from the Army, specializing in, suicide for military families. And, talk therapy with that. I also have a life coach who's more like a therapist for me, but getting to talk with her and get different goals set every week, that's been important. But utilizing that as part of a whole program has been incredible.
Kitara, I want to keep diving into this, but I also want to have time here for us to open up more questions with our group. And I want to pose a question to the group and to our guests tonight, as sort of an overarching theme here is do women need to conform to the traditions and customs of the military, or does the military have to change to accommodate the needs and participation of women? This was a great question that Todd and I discussed that we thought would be appropriate for tonight. But before we get to that, as everyone sort of can ruminate on that for a minute, Ida Mae Gower posed a question here in the chat for you, Kitara. Will you encourage your children to join the military?
I do already. Yeah.
Wow.
I do. Yeah. So I think it's incredible camaraderie, training. It brings you into such skills, people skills, negotiation skills. I mean, it's already, even if I stay just E6 for the rest of the next 16 years, I would be super happy. But I hope like I'm, as soon as you make a rank, you're like, I'm gunning for chief, I'm gunning for the next. But I'm really I'm super happy with the skills that I've already been able to pick up and just the people knowledge.
So you could how long could you stay in then from at this point?
Yeah, until I'm 60. So 15 years. Yeah, 15 more years. But yeah, I would definitely encourage them. Any children, really. I mean, what a way to learn how to become an American, right? Part of the oath of enlistment is it's directly about, I will support and defend, right? I will obey the orders of my officers and those appointed over me, but it's all about learn. And we really are encouraged to learn more about our government and the Constitution. So it's just been great. We had to do it as part of our diversity training, and we had a DoD stand down for extremism. And our officers had us do the oath of enlistment again. And the officers all took their commissioning oaths again, as we were just standing up in our training, because they said, this is who you are. Like you swore to protect and uphold and defend. So, it was great.
And also your blog, we're going to have that posted here in our chat. I encourage anyone to go over and read it to get more of an idea of the suggestions that you bring up to help bring more women into the military, but not only that, to promote women into officer ranks. It was a really wonderful read. But I think I saw George Kniss. Did you have your hand up? That doesn't surprise me, George. I can always count on you for a question.
I'm trying to mold my life after Todd DiPastino. He made a profession of history. I'm just an amateur. I'm going to take a position on the question you raised tonight of whether women mold to the military or the military should mold to women. I think the latter. I think the military is an old style, autocratic, male-dominated system that is evolving. But I always remember the story that Russia had a lot of women fighters during World War II, and that the Israelis had some great women fighters. And I thought, why the hell isn't America being more forceful in this? And I believed this since I was in. And that's why, Todd, I got your book. Thank you. Excellent. You got to read this book, Kiara. Okay, this is about wives of military guys over the years being deployed. It's their story. and Todd can connect you up with the woman who wrote it. I think that women like you who get deployed should be talking to their mates, whatever, about writing a book about you. Okay? Just the reverse of what this book was. Just a flip-flop, because women are so ingrained in the military now that they are doing what men used to do, and the men back home ought to be writing books about their wives being deployed. I see so much of it, and I think it's so great. But getting back to my point and my question, do you think the military could do much more on having programs of advancing enlisted women to become officers? Because I think the military has failed for decades and decades of having programs to move your best enlisted people forward, whether they're men or women. But I think particularly in the cases I've seen tonight, enlisted women could do so well as officers. What do you think?
Tara, this might be point for your disclosure, right?
Oh, sure. Yes. Yeah. So yeah, I do, like, I have a little disclosure from the United States Navy, and it says, I do not represent the viewpoints of the United States Navy or the United States Navy Reserve. These are my viewpoints. But that's a great point. I do think that they have incredible recruiting and incredible officer candidacy programs. Could they do a better job of picking women? I like that when we say we have to pick the best candidate, that is very true. But then how are we viewing those, and who is picking that? That definitely, having a review board, if it's made up of one type of demographic, they're going to pick members that look like their demographic. So if we can balance that out a little bit better, I think that'll make some changes. Also, having that feeder track. So a lot of military schools are very still, like, they're not like male and female. It's just they're not integrated. It's just
still dominated by males.
Yeah. So there are a lot of
the academies.
Yes, the academies, and a lot of the female academies are penal institutions. So it's better to go to one of those, but I definitely, or competing in football against one of those, like, you know what I mean? Like don't go out of soccer, but it's basically, how do we start that recruitment? And I really liked our March. I'm so sorry. I'm going to get our first speaker.
Michaela.
Michaela. Yeah. Sorry about that, Michaela. Our first speaker, Michaela, how she talked about we could do a better job of recruiting certain populations. So that would be neat.
Yes.
Michaela, Danielle, I also want to make sure that you guys have a chance to chime in here for this discussion if you would like. And Julia.
Julia.
And Julia.
I will just make an observation before we started here on Zoom. Danielle and we were talking, and Danielle said at first she wanted to go become an officer. She's E6. She was thinking maybe now she'll stay enlisted because she enjoys the hands-on, working with people as part of a team. And my mind immediately went to, the field that I'm from and that my wife is in, which is teaching. And it's kind of like, I think of it as the difference between being a classroom teacher, hands-on, and being an administrator or a principal. And people are often suggesting to, my wife, don't you want to become a principal? And she really likes that experience, like hands-on with the kids, Mm-hmm. And so I congratulated Danielle and said, like, good for you for, sticking with enlisted. Kitara, what did you say?
At that time, I said, well, I think it's really important that if we have the degrees and we have the drive, we got to get to officer candidacy so that we're teaching others and leading others by example.
You're missing one word of what you said that I think is important. And I'm bringing this up. And it's because as a woman, as a woman, right, it's important to have women role models in positions in officer positions.
And responsibility.
It's something as a man that I would not think about.
Right.
And to me, that's why these conversations are so important. I'm like, do whatever you want. But I think when you as a woman, you must feel like an extra responsibility to, be a pioneer like Julia was and is, and, like so many other women that we've had on these programs are, that there's still a long way to go, and you've got to do something a little bit extra. That was impressive to me. That was very interesting to me.
Yeah, I think there's a sense of responsibility that, people are watching and they're watching what the outcomes of your actions are. So I think that's important. That's important.
Yep.
Kitara, I appreciate something that you mentioned that you said earlier about the review boards need to be diverse too. So absolutely the best and the brightest should have the leadership opportunities, but so many things can be subjective depending on who is reviewing and deciding. And so that's why it's important to have diversity right at the beginning, right within who is deciding who can have these opportunities or not. And it is especially important that units, when they have to take, units will need to take a step back. And I don't know if it needs to be, through an outside agency that's not military related, looking into it, but kind of take a step back and look at their population, right? Is there diversity in leadership? And I'm talking about, as far as Black people in diversity and leadership, people of color and women. And so, and if there's not, they really need to ask the question, why is this going on? Because it's not lack of talent, it's lack of the opportunity, especially if there's certain places where people are leaving, in droves or often because there's kind of that ceiling, then, there's probably an issue there. So it's definitely something that needs addressed, and hopefully we'll see some changes one day.
Yeah, I agree. I've definitely, so for me in my particular regiment that I've been with for the last 5 years, love it. Our leaders have been outstanding and diverse. We have had some diverse leaders in there, and they're wonderful leaders, right? And I've never suffered for lack of promotion. I've been on the fast track. So I'm very grateful, but I've also heard stories of, not necessarily in my unit, but the soldiers that I work with, other sailors in other units. I've heard those stories of people that are really stuck for 10 years. That's a grind. That makes you feel like you're not part of a unit or you're not being valued for your work. So that's very important.
Is there a way to fix that? That's again, a question that maybe we can't answer, but is it about, like you said, Michaela, maybe bringing in a third party to sort of check it out, see where diversity could be more inclusive, where they could make changes to help people that are also fast tracked?
I think so. I think an outside agency would be helpful, because it's easy for someone within to say, oh yeah, well, I think we're being fair. How about you? It's kind of just checking yourself. But, sometimes if there's, an objective point of view, that can be more helpful.
Peter Thens, you had your hand up.
Hi, guys. I just wanted to bring one thing to, we're talking about women in the military, and, my hat's off to the three of you. You guys have done some excellent service. I was an MP. I had female soldiers, both as supervisors, peers, and soldiers. One thing that I found, and it has to do with knowledge, in the active duty, you're counseled on how to get promoted. If you've got soldiers who are doing an excellent job, you do bring up, hey, I want to do, how about, have you ever thought of going OCS? One of the things that they didn't realize, and I found this really, not funny in a ha-ha way, but just strange, was that they were of the opinion that if they wanted to have a family, then they couldn't do that.
Right.
And I would, much to what Kitara was saying, you're a single mother trying to get in. I understand the reasons why, because I was in for so long. I understand the reasons why they wouldn't let just a single mother come in. You have to have that family care plan. And I had so many soldiers that I helped put those plans together for, because a lot of, especially it seemed a lot of MPs, there were dual military, husbands and wives serving together. And of course, they can't both deploy at the same time. Who's taking care of the kids? But that was something that I think knowledge base, we need to get out there a little better. It's not that we don't want you. It's, it's just that, and it's also the fact that you don't have to give up a family or being a mother. But I'll tell you what, though, it is tough. It is really tough. But my hat's off to you guys for being in that position where you just keep driving ahead.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
It's a great point, Peter. And that's something, Dave Seaver, we'll get to you in just once. That's something that I think that, Todd, we were just talking about. Was it Military Family Month next month, April? This is such a great primer for that discussion that we're going to start having next month, talking about military families and the challenges that everyone faces, not only single mother with kids, deploying with kids, or, signing off the, representation. That's, a lot of different things that we can dive down. Dave.
Yeah, I just wanted to pipe because I'm an Air Force reservist. So yeah, I just wanted, because in my experience, I've been in since 2003. Mm-hmm. I've had 4 of my 6 squadron commanders are bird colonel females. The last one just became the chief nurse for Air Force Reserve Command. When we were still in 22nd Air Force, because we got different aircraft now, we're in a different Air Force, numbered Air Force. But the last commander we had for 22nd Air Force when we were still there was Lieutenant General Stacy Harris, who was African-American female, tanker pilot. So, I know the Navy is very steeped in tradition, and that's really, I think the Air Force has the advantage of we are young as a service. And we actually have there are a lot of females in my squadron, a lot of young ones, especially, they come in as med techs. But, if they're going to nursing school, they're doing that kind of stuff, I strongly encourage them to get their education and look at commissioning, just because in the future, it doesn't matter if you're male, female, we need good officers and leaders for the future.
Absolutely. I've heard some great things about actually the Air Force Reserve. I was in the National Guard, but
come on over. We're just across the runway from you.
I know. I have friends who went over to the reserve and have really good experiences there. So that's great. Mm-hmm.
And I've heard a lot about, the new Space Force. I would love to get some active duty Space Force representatives on our program, because I've heard them, through the news sources I read, is that they're trying to do it right from the beginning, because they are brand new. They haven't even, gotten off the lot yet, pretty much. And they're saying, we want diverse leadership from the get-go, and to make a diverse core here. Something that struck me that Danielle mentioned, and I know that we're a little over time now, so we'll be wrapping up soon, but something that, Danielle, you sort of had a lot of passion about your, like the person that you would want to meet. Like if you got the chance to meet this person who broke the glass ceiling for you. Kitara, Michaela, I'd also be interested to hear about, who you look up to in the military. Or even if not military, who you look up to as a female mentor.
Well, thank you for that question. So I was still in when I got my master's degree. So I'm a licensed professional counselor. And actually, I'm going to mention someone on the civilian side. I do have a private practice in Squirrel Hill. And I share an office with someone who I really respect and value her mentorship. And so she's also a licensed professional counselor. And, I value how she's able to balance her life as a mother and a wife and also private practice. And so that's one person on the civilian side. I know that recently there have been more women of color and Black women in particular who have moved up the ranks. And so on the military side, I definitely admire those people. There is someone that I still keep in touch with, and he's African American, and he is an officer. He was at my unit at first, and then ended up going to the 9/11th, and he was the one at my particular unit who did he kind of was the spearhead of the African American luncheons. And I became really close friends with his wife, actually. And so that's someone else that I look up to as far as like as a couple, because I ended up becoming really close with his wife and we keep in touch. So, yeah.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Kitara.
There's a Admiral Mary Riggs in the Navy, and she sits on a review board among all other duties that she's in. I oftentimes think I would really like to sit down and pick her brain and just get to meet her. She is, she's definitely spent some time on the phone with me in different suggestions that I've thrown out there. Because you can, as enlisted, you can make suggestions that go all the way up to the very top, and they do listen, right? And so she'll call me when I throw in one of those suggestions. She's like, well, we like this suggestion, but we couldn't use it because of this, this, and this. And so she'll give me direction on, you know, like how to make it better or what was its impact. So I really do appreciate that. As looking for a mentor, you know, in writing that story for the United States Naval Institute and the blog there, I was thinking about Senior Chief Shannon Kent, who we lost in, I think it was 2019 in Syria, and just her life. What a life of service, what a life of dedication and wanting to go back. And her story still inspires me because it's like, that's the lady that should have a Medal of Honor, you know, like we've only had one Medal of Honor since 1865 for females. And that's the lady, you know, Senior Chief Shannon Kent. She had been on different combat missions, and her last mission was a mission. But it was, you know, written up as if she was like, oh, she was at a restaurant. She was on a mission. But, you know, that just finding those heroes that are hidden. And, you know, and I love the untold stories. That's great. I'm going to look that up. And finding those untold stories of women in the military who were the combat heroes, but didn't receive the recognition. MJ Hager, you know, Senior Chief Shannon Kent. It's those women who did have real battles to overcome and sometimes made it through, sometimes didn't. So thank you.
Julie, I bet you didn't think I would ask you the same question, but boy, I can't imagine that whenever you went in World War II, who was your mentor? Who did you look up to? Or were you like, I'm going to be a mentor?
I don't think it ever occurred to me to have one. I think I've gotten a lot of credit that credit isn't due to. I admired all the uppers in the Navy, but I don't know that I had a mentor. There was nobody, I knew nobody who was in the service ahead of me. I never thought of that before. I just wanted to do something. That was my goal.
And how does it feel being a mentor?
I didn't realize I was. I don't think I am. None of my children were interested in going to the service. I have the one granddaughter who is a policewoman. She's the only one that seems to be interested in getting in there and doing something. Mm-hmm. So, and she's still on crutches, I might add. So, mm-hmm. But she just wanted to do something also. I think that was my goal, was just do something that would benefit the world and justify my existence. So
I think that's the best words to end the program on. I think that's what we've heard from each of our guests tonight is this: I want to serve. I want to do something, you know, to benefit the country. Danielle? Or what's that?
Danielle.
Did you
a mentor or somebody you admired? Sorry.
George is not letting you off the hook, Danielle. You got to name a mentor. Make one up.
I apologize. I know, Danielle, that you had
need be.
Danielle had mentioned one, but if you want to use the same one, you can use a different one, though. I'll give you the free pass on that.
She did bring a good one up, MJ Hager, the Shoot Like a Girl book. I love that. Next month, I'm having a screening for Served Like a Girl, which is another documentary. There's so many good ones, but right now my focus is on Major General Jody Daniels, the first woman to ever be the commanding general of an Army component. That is a huge, huge honor. So she's on my radar for now.
And Danielle, I don't think you've talked about VLP, Veterans Leadership Program, which is a premier organization here in Pittsburgh that has been around for almost 40 years, if not 40 years, maybe more than 40 years. It was originally the Vietnam Veterans Leadership Program. You're the head of the women's program for VLP. And I just wanted to say, if you have ideas that the Veterans Breakfast Club could be involved with for any programming you might have, we'd love to partner with you on it and, support whatever you're doing.
Yes, I love that.
Very good.
Thank you.
Well, thank you everybody for coming on and being a part of Generation 9/11 tonight. I want to thank our guests, Michaela, Kitara, Danielle, and Julia for jumping in here. We always sort of have to highlight you, but I learned a lot tonight, and I'm really honored to be a part of this conversation and to hear a lot of your stories. And I do hope that we all get to get together again. Hopefully in person. Kitara, come on up to Pittsburgh, hang out, come to a breakfast when we're back in person. But please join us again, everyone. We will be back on Monday night for Vietnam Veterans Day. Yep. Big celebration that night. So if you want to come on, please do. You're welcome to join us.
We'll celebrate the old people.
The old people. You said it.
I just said that because I saw Larry. I saw Larry suddenly appeared and said, all right. Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you.
Thank you to everyone for
Great questions. Thank you.